What's going on, DeJuan?
What's going on, Coach Sid?
Not a lot, man. Uh, just believe it or not, I found this interview of you from a year ago online, and I was listening to it.
Uh,
And I was like, "Oh, Key."
which interview was it?
It was something regarding strengthening and conditioning. I think with
Oh
Samson.
yeah. I've been getting hit up a lot to do a lot of podcasts and things like that. So I've been soaking that up and just trying to get my voice out there a little bit more. So it's been good in that sense. Like uh, all those years from doing strength and conditioning and sticking with the MMA and all of that martial arts work is just people are like, oh yeah, we know this guy. Let's give him a call. Let's talk to him. We got some good ideas. Let's go where he's at. So it's been good.
That's good. That's look. If I say anything to athletes these days, one of the things I'm constantly reinforcing is find a way to keep your name out there, stay relevant.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those days like even when I got into strength and conditioning, I was like, all the strength coaches they do the same thing. Like they teach weightlifting and power cleans and bench press. I'm like, man, I want to do something different. So when I got introduced to combatives, I was like, that's it right there. Like the two go hand in hand as well. So it kind of paid off for me in a sense. So I kind of when people talk about me in regards to strength and conditioning, I'm related to football and then combat. Those two. So
Hey, let's
it's like
go let's go down that route real quick. What makes
okay,
what you do different from from the macro to the micro? What makes what you do different?
yeah, I say like on the micro level, I would say I'm more of a focused guy in regards to speed. Like if you look at all the good fighters, being speed and being agile. Like all the great fighters. Look at Anderson Silva, you look at the GSP, you look at even the Conor McGregor's, Jose Aldo, Dustin Poirier, all those guys, they're very agile and they're very fast. So in that sense, anytime I train a guy for a fighter, the first thing I focus on is the speed aspect. Maintaining that speed even under a fatigue state. So I like to like when I'm getting a guy ready for a fight, I like to get him tired. Do reverse training is what I call it. Like I like to purposely get him tired so he can focus on his speed. Maintaining that speed when he's under fatigue. So when he's fresh, it's easy. So once he hits that fatigue stage, he's practiced it so much during practice that it just comes second nature to him. So it's the same concept when I train football players. I always focus on speed. I feel like speed is the X factor in any sport. Like the fastest team is always going to win. Strength phases out, so does speed. But when you get towards the end of the fight, who has the most conditioning, who has the most speed, 9 times out of 10 is going to win over that stronger guy. So,
Where are you right now? Like, which state?
Georgia,
So, are you working with any fighters just in the military or civilian as well?
primarily military. I went and did a stint with the NFL for 2 preseasons, 22 and 23 seasons. Not sure if I go back this year, but primarily I just left the Combatants Fight House doing MMA over there. So anytime a fighter come and ask me to help train them, I always keep that avenue open because I just love training fighters. It's what I do. I have a passion for it. Same thing with football, but primarily just doing the fighters just here, just locally.
So, these fighters, are they fighting professionally?
Yeah, some fight professionally. Some just do, just basic competition. Some are doing Army combatives, the all Army tournaments, things like that. So it just depends on. It's just a broad spectrum of guys that I've helped train,
I got you.
amateur level, all of it.
You associated with any gyms down there?
Yeah, I go and train jiu-jitsu, a couple of them, actually. I do jiu-jitsu at Gracie Savannah Jiu-Jitsu, and then also go to Champion Training Center. So between those two gyms, I kind of go back and forth between those two gyms. I was going to ATT Taekwondo school as well. Just wanted to learn different martial art, add another element to my game. So those three gyms. are the main three gyms that I usually attend around here in the local Georgia area.
Hey, tell me about the Taekwondo. What are you learning from it?
Man, I learned a lot. Like a lot of people don't like the karate taekwondo style. I like it in a sense because it goes back to the speed factor. Like even when I watch like UFC, Bellator, I always used to love watching like Cheetah, MVP. They have that karate taekwondo stance. Anthony, the Pettis brothers, like it always like it was something about like I was like they have something different in their game. Like I was like it's not Muay Thai. That's not a Muay Thai. So I looked at their backgrounds. It was taekwondo or karate. So I was like I need to learn that because it's the footwork, the angles, just the speed and the angles of the kick what kind of caught my attention. And it's a little bit different than a traditional Muay Thai kick. But once you tie the two together, like if you know how to tie the two together, it can be real effective. The foot sweeps and things like that it was just different, a different aspect, and they were real successful at it. So I was like, I want to tie that into my game towards it.
And
I studied that. Go ahead.
Did you have a chance to watch the last UFC fight night recently?
I didn't. I missed it.
Man, there was a guy up there named Magomedov, and his footwork and speed is just like you're talking about.
Yeah,
he brought something different. He wasn't a full. It wasn't a static karate mode, and it wasn't a full Muay Thai mode. It was something in between. I don't know what he's learned, if he learned that from Combat Sambo or if he just picked this up on his own. But you talk about a style that breaks the opponent down, and he ended up finishing the guy. And I think he's undefeated in 13 fights. What was so amazing about it that I saw was not his speed of execution, but his ability to reset and go again. That was the real speed.
Yeah, and see, it, like you said, just kind of piggyback off that. That's that element that I saw within the Taekwondo karate art. Like they're able to be out of range but stay in range, and that just goes back to a lot of footwork that they do, the angles. Like it's a very deceptive martial art. So just like I said, just to being able to learn that was real valuable for me. Even though I'm not like competitively fighting it like anymore, it's just when I go and train, I still see like the benefits of it. Like so I try to teach some of the younger guys, hey.
Yeah, let's take it back to your fighting days.
Yeah.
So I got to watch one of your earlier videos and looked at your record on Sherdog. You were a bit of a finisher early on. I guess let's ask this question: why didn't we get more fights out of you?
Oh, that's a good question. I can answer that. That's a great question. I think for me, honestly, it was. I think I got to a point where like I didn't want to stay stagnant in my career as well. So I had to choose between the two, long term, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And I know I can't fight forever, so I didn't want to continuously put my career on hold. So I kind of pursued my career more, was to say. But I do get that itch. I'm not gonna lie, but that itch a lot.
Now it's good to me that you're still involved because at least because you have a mind for it. So it's good that you're still involved because you're passing that down.
Right, and that's the thing. Like, it's I've been fortunate to train with some great fighters and great coaches. You being one of them, Team Rock. I was able to train at Jackson MMA, HMC in Hawaii, Grappling Unlimited in Hawaii, and then some of the other local schools around here in Georgia, like the Champion, Integration. And I've been at some good schools, some great guys, great coaches. So I feel like martial arts is one of those things that you never stop learning because it's always evolving. So now there's so much more you can do as a competitor where you don't necessarily have to be a four-time MMA fighter. You can do jiu-jitsu tournaments. You can do grappling tournaments, striking now. So they've made a lot more variations, but you can still stay active and see how much you progress with skills. So that's one of the things I kind of glad about.
Yeah, I was talking about that today. How the game and the industry as a whole is ready to take another leap. It happens in different segments, and we saw it like the first segment we saw it was when Marcus Huas comes along, and everybody's like well-rounded. That became the catchphrase for a while, and then through my studies, I noticed that from 2015 to 2017, there was a slight shift in performance. And you can go back and look at different champions from that time frame, and you can see the champions who incorporated better nutrition, the champions and the fighters in general who incorporated better strength and conditioning, and as well as psychological combative training. And you notice that the performance just rose and rose. And you also saw the evidence, because you would see the fights being scored more strictly in terms of like the outcome. Would be a lot more split decisions. So if you look at 2017 to now, there are a lot more split decisions being handed out versus when you go back to 2015 and look before that. You look at more of the scorecards that are 29-28. Even if they're the unanimous decisions, there are more scorecards that say 29-28. Before that, they were primarily 30-27. So fighters have gotten better, and the judges are having a hard time figuring out who really won these fights.
Right, because I think it's like, and you just hit the nail on the coffin. I mean, nail on the head is just like the involvement of the training aspect. Like, and you said it, like now fighters are training a lot more smarter. Like you said, it used to be where fighters train like hard every day, beating themselves up, going into a fight, trained up, and now it's like, okay, they're using a lot more strategic approach to fighting, a less direct impact to fighting regarding, how much impact that fighter takes during a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. It's just, like you said, as a whole, it evolved so fast. And the crazy part is I see it evolving more, like, and that's even scarier. Like, what's next? It seems like we've already reached that pinnacle in regards to human performance of the training, but there's something new is going to come out. That's going to be the next biggest thing. I foresee them doing because if you look at it too, I don't know if you know talk about this. Like, there's a lot more older fighters now too in different organizations. So I feel like at some point they're going to even do weight and age brackets. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's just because there is a difference. That age does play a difference. And I feel like the fights would be more competitive if they stayed at an age and weight division bracket.
I agree with you on that, and the UFC will have to take the lead on that. I think that any organization who took the lead would be in good favor with the fans, because the fans still want to see some of the fighters that they like. Because I remember for the longest time, especially when Pride and UFC were both in existence at the same time, everybody wanted to see Randy Couture and Fedor. Everybody wanted to see some of these crossover matches, and they still wanted to see Marcos Huas. Even though these guys were getting older, they wanted to see what would have happened had they fought in their prime. Right. And so now you've got guys like Jim Miller who've proven you can be around a long time and still be competitive as long as you're matching him up against other older fighters within reason. Right. We're not saying throw him a bone. We're just saying, hey, he doesn't need to take on every 25-year-old that comes out.
Right.
And kickboxing, boxing, all of them have talked about this at some point in time, but not many of them have actually done anything about it. I would love to see a division where guys don't have to just retire and they can still be competitive and come out, not necessarily needing to go to the hospital.
Right. And that's 100% accurate, because even who is it? It just fought. I think it was Chael Sonnen and Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was in Brazil. I think they just did a boxing match. But I mean, those names are still going to sell seats. uh, regardless of how old they get, those are still big names. Those are legends in the sport.
Right.
So, like you said, a lot of us still want to see those legends. They're still able to compete. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure if they did that, you would get guys back like George. George will come back probably. Some of the other older guys with bigger names, they'll probably come back. Who was it? Matt Brown just recently retired. I think Matt went out with a bang, with a knockout. You know what I mean? So I think if they did have those divisions, those guys would stick around a little bit longer.
Because we saw examples of it, like when Ken Shamrock went to Bellator, when Hoist and who am I thinking? Japanese fighter, the greatest Japanese fighter of all time. I can't remember his name. Kazuki. When him and Hoist fought like the third time, you know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
But yeah, people want to see it because of the curiosity of it. Like
Right.
I said, with Fedor and Randy, just the curiosity of it, just like what would have happened. So you're absolutely right; it would have worked, and maybe even DeJuan Hathaway.
Yeah. Well, they keep asking me to do like one or two more, and I'm just like, I get that itch like a lot of times too. I'm like, okay, eventually I'm gonna break. I got to do it before I get too old. Fortunate enough, I hadn't beat my body up.
Yeah.
I mean, you know me. I was never one of those guys that kind of went hard in practice. I felt practice was good for practice and go hard when it's time to turn on this switch. Like, I was fortunate. I was one of those guys that I could turn it on when it's time to compete.
Right.
And just use practice, work on technique. But yeah, I'm probably gonna be like.
Let's take a deep dive into what your practice philosophy overall is.
Yeah. So mine, I actually stole it from Fahaz, which is George's coach. And one thing that I heard him say, he was on a Joe Rogan podcast one time, and he was like, when he was training George, he never allowed him to train over 70% every day. And his concept behind it was he can train him 70% 7 days a week as compared to going 100% 3 days a week. And once you tally that time on the mat up, it's going to be almost 3 months more time on the mat at the end of the year as the guy who went hard 3 days a week and had to take like 2 days off during the week. So I kind of take that same approach. For me, like today, we did clinch work, and all of our clinch work was about 60-70%. We did 10 rounds of clinch, 70%. Usually those days like that, I have a harder lifting session, strength and conditioning session in the morning, then I'll go and train at night. And then I'll do that twice a week. I'll just grapple twice a week, and then I'll do 1 day of sparring, which is towards the end of the week. And that's how I usually do my training, with 1 day active recovery, film work. So watch some tape, just recovering on that day. But that's how I've always done my training since probably around about 2014. I took on that approach. And for me, the light bulb went on. I was like, damn, like combat sports is twice as hard as football. And I thought about, even when I was playing college football, like that was kind of the same approach we used. Like we didn't go hard. I can't even remember when we went hard in practice. Like, it was only hard on game day. Like we went like 60-70%. Most of us walk through. You run your routes full speed, but no impact or anything like that until the day of the game. And I was like, that's the same approach I need to take in college. That's the same approach that the Haas was talking about with GSP. So that's been my approach to combat training ever since then.
Yeah. It's funny you brought up football. Den Thomas was on Sirius XM today. He's co-host on one of those shows, and he was talking about watching some show on Netflix called The Quarterback, and talking about all the things that quarterbacks have to go through, to get ready for a game or whatever. And it reminded me of one of the things that I was always, I just loved it. It was Hard Knocks that used to come on HBO.
Oh yeah.
And just the whole idea behind training would always impress me, and it helped me develop the philosophy of learning from different coaches that don't have anything to do with martial arts, because coaching is a coaching skill. It's different. It can apply to anything, and I learned from Hard Knocks about, like you said, the days where you don't do a lot of hard work, but yet you're doing a lot of work that trains the nervous system. I love Hard Knocks, and then HBO also immersed itself into other areas like basketball, and they were talking about just really skills drills and things that have nothing to do with running scrimmages all day. I love that type of philosophy and mentality, because that takes us back to what you were saying about preserving the body, with Faraz not working out at 100%. I like that philosophy. I've got a very similar philosophy, and I want to ask you this question. How do you measure what 70% is?
Your ability to recover the next day. Like, if you're my theory is everybody's 70% is going to be different in a sense, but you should keep the practices to where everybody on the field should be able to recover and come back the next day and give out another 70%. Same thing for the next day, give out another 70%.
Okay, so that would make sense compared to how I measure things, because I'm dealing with 1 to 4 athletes preparing for an event, so it's easier to keep up with.
Right.
If I had 70 guys, I'm not going to sit down and measure everyone individual, but I would have something that would help me do it as a group in a mass context. So I get what you're saying. If they can't,
Right.
if they don't show up, that's a definite sign.
Exactly. Or if they're always getting hurt as well too.
Yeah.
So that was always my scale, because when I first started as a coach, you always have that impression, like, I gotta push them, I gotta let them know, like, we're here to work hard, X, Y, and Z. But I learned over time, like, that runs off athletes. It makes them unmotivated. So I had to find a way to keep them motivated, keep it fun, yet I get the work that I need to get out of them for that day, and have them ready to come back the next day.
Yeah.
So,
what type of schedule do you run guys on? 4 days on, 3 days off, 4 or 5 days on, 2 days, 6 days on. What's your frequency?
I do a 2-1, so 2 days on, 1 day of active recovery, which is usually our Wednesday, another 2 days, and then another active recovery day on Saturday. Sunday's usually off.
And this is in your competitive zone.
Yes, this is my competitive zone. Now, that does vary depending on, like, I'll mix it up depending on, so say if that fighter is fighting on a Friday night, well, we'll just switch that schedule around,
right,
to where that hard day is on,
or a different
Friday
time zone or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
You have to make those adjustments. Yeah.
Right.
That's what we used to do with Tim when Tim was here. I didn't do a lot of it, but like even when Damon was here, he needed to train at 5 a.m. I would go train 5 a.m. I hated it, but I get that sometimes you just got to make allowances for special athletes. How did you feel when DeJuan? I hate all y'all's names, man. But
right.
how'd you feel when you found out DeJuan had made it to the UFC?
I mean, I was not shocked that he made it there, to be honest with you.
Right.
And I will say this, like, him, that group that when I was there, it was Paris, Isaiah, Ricky. That was a special group of guys, like, all of them. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like all of them has the potential to go as far as they want to go.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I know some of us, we did the whole XFC thing and that kind of fell through, but that just shows, like, all the talent that was in that room at that given time. Like, and I saw it because, like I said, I've been in Jackson's gym where there's a bunch of superstars. I'm like, man, this is probably one of the best smaller weight class groups I've ever been in. Talking about, that group at Team Rock that we had, like, there's a bunch of talent in their room. I was like, man, there's a bunch of dudes in here that go far, far.
Yeah,
So
I actually tell people about that XFC tryout with you, Banks, and Ricky,
yeah,
and I said for all three of them to go and get a contract, I knew we were on to something right in terms
yeah,
of the vibe, and I've even adapted my coaching philosophy over the years to where now I recognize guys that had abilities like you, Ricky, Banks, even Damon, Isaiah's a coach now. Like I recognize these abilities, trade pace, and what I've become really good at, what I found out what my superpower is, I'm really good at delegating, specific tasks to these guys as coaches and as fighters, because not everybody's fighting at the same time.
right.
And so I utilize their special skills instead of it being me in front trying to always be like my way or the highway. It's me delegating, understanding like today, you must go against this person because of what this person brings out of you. And so that's what I've become more proficient at. Do you see any correlation in what you do where you are allowing a little bit of freedom to the athletes? And let's talk about some of your co-coaches.
Yeah. So you just said, man, you just touched on something that I've learned as well too, Coach Seth, and credit it like back to you. Like I didn't when I used to watch you coach, like I was like, how does he do that? Like I couldn't see how you would always tailor to 5 or 6 different, because all of us, none of us had the same style,
Right.
but you always made it to where like, all right, we're gonna do this to fit your style. Like you said, we're gonna do this to fit your style, and it always flowed smooth for everybody. And that's one thing that I took from you, in the sense that I integrated in my coaching. So I let athletes be themselves. You know what I mean? So, like you said, I don't so much anymore say like it's my way or the highway.
Mm-hmm.
I let them find their strengths and let them play in their strengths, because that's what makes them great. You know what I mean? And for me to take away the strengths and be like, no, you need to do it this way because this is what the book says, X, Y, and Z. I'm hurting that athlete more than helping.
Right.
So I think as a coach, and you said it, you grow as a coach, you learn as a coach. All great coaches let their players be the Michael Jordans that they need to be. You don't tell a Michael Jordan how to play basketball.
Right.
You just help guide them. You know what I'm saying? That's what Phil Jackson was great at with the Kobe's. That's why he had so many great players. He allowed those players to be themselves.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, and I feel whether it's coaching MMA or just doing strength and conditioning, you let those players be themselves, and you just help and shape and direct those strengths that they have. Don't try to change them. That's what made them. That's what helped them get to where they are. So
that's one of those theories that I've heard about Michael Jordan when he was with Dean Smith. Dean Smith would relegate Jordan to playing basics because he knew that the more he played the basics, then he would explode as a Jordan.
Yep.
And there were certain games when he needed a Jordan, and he let Jordan be Jordan, but Jordan wouldn't necessarily be on the court for both halves or whatever, or the entire game. But there were moments, and even if he took say 8 minutes away from Jordan, Jordan still would score double digits, like 17 to 20 points, playing 1/3 of the game, playing 2/3 of the game. That's crazy. And I didn't get it when I first heard about it, and then when I went back and did some studying and looking, and you look at the difference of Jordan in college and what he averaged to how he just exploded on the pro scene, you're like, I get it. He held them back for a reason, to save a lot of that energy, to keep him from getting hurt, to develop his mind for the game from the sidelines as well as on the court. I do a lot of that too now. Like when we do special drills or anything like that, or Shark Tanks, it's not just wait your turn. It's like you actively be involved. You coach the other coach. You coach the other fighters. You study. Look at the weaknesses of the guys. It's like doing real time film study. Instead of waiting for the videotape to come out, you're doing it right there. You're studying what's going on right there. Because I have a new phrase: you're always in the fight, so you might as well always be engaged.
I like that.
That way you have no excuses. A lot of times you've seen it in the past where, like if we were Shark Tanking you or something, you see guys, well, I'm gonna go get some water. No, you're still training.
Right.
Get back over here. You're still training. Whether you're watching or whether you're coaching, you're still training. So a lot of guys think that if they're not the focus, that somehow they're not the thoroughbred, that there's no attention on them. I'm all about creating an entire room, not just individuals.
That's what I'm saying. That's what you did a great job at. And like you said, like even if we wasn't, getting Shark Tank, I was always like watching and listening. Like you'd be like, Ricky, you need to do this, and I'm like, damn, like I didn't even see that. You know what I mean? It's just like you see stuff like that's. And they say a good coach is your set of eyes outside of the ring. Like they see stuff that you don't see. You know what I mean? And that's a sign of a great athlete and a great fighter with the ability to not be physically playing in the game, but mentally engaged into the game. Because you actually learn more from the mental side than you do the physical side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see stuff first before you can actually play it out.